welcome back to Daytime. Now, some of the finest artists in the Peel region will go stroke to stroke, if you will, in an upcoming juried show called Arts on the Credit. We have one of those visual artists joining us today, Bill Hagan, live in studio. Bill, thank you so much for coming and bringing all of your beautiful artwork with you.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Now, I'd like to ask you, you look at concrete objects and then you translate them into abstract images. That sounds really challenging and maybe something that a lot of people can actually accomplish. How do you go about doing that?
Well, what I sort of do is I theme my my activities around things that people are day-to-day ordinary items, whether you're walking in the woods or the latest, I did a thing last year on cars, classic cars from the 60s and the 70s, and these are things that people can relate with and they're ordinary objects, and the whole idea is that you take that ordinary object and you reinvest your ideas and your thoughts into it, and I do that through photography, and then I take the photography and I take, whether it's the chrome or the colors or the shadows or the shapes, and transpose that into an abstract image. So a lot of my paintings will have a sort of realistic feel to them, but the colors come from those studies with the photographs, whether it be a walk through the park or taking a look at the local car show.
And there's a photo that we're seeing as a prime example right there, right off the bat.
Wow.
So what did this originate from? What was this a photo?
So last year I did a show called Garage Art. It was all about the cars from the, the classic cars from the 60s and the 70s. And that was a study I did with an old Chevy. And the Chevys back then had the turquoises and the blues and the blacks. And I took those colors and transposed it into a contemporary painting. So the whole idea is that if you're a car guy, you see that painting, you go, hey, I know where those colors came from. But if you're not a car person, you look at the painting and go, well, I see something different. And I get the whole idea of the people that designed the cars back then, they had a certain color palette, and then I've just adopted that color palette into the paintings that I've created.
Because I'm not a car guy, and I totally didn't. I mean, I'm far away from the monitor, but I didn't see anything car related at all.
No, so, and that was the whole idea of contemporary art, is you can envision what you think into it. And my premise behind art, and for my audience, is if they say the words "I think," then I've done what I wanted to do. Whether I think it's horrible, or whether I think it's great, or whether I think it reminds me of my childhood days with my grandfather's car. The whole idea of contemporary art for me is thinking about the art, and what kind of thoughts come out, it really doesn't matter. As
long as it resonates in some way with everybody.
Yeah, the whole idea is, for me, for art, is getting people to think and observe and maybe even make a comment towards it.
Absolutely. And in that picture specifically, we saw turquoise.
Yeah.
Behind you, we see a lot of browns and reds. In some of the other pictures, we see different colors. Why do you have such a fascination with color?
Well, it's the way I've seen things since I was a kid. Basically, everything for me is like a whole rainbow of stuff, and trying to pull it together into some type of organized image in my mind. I guess that's the best to describe it. But where I go out for a hike in the woods and I look for something, I don't see individual objects. I see the whole big palette of color, and then I go back to the studio and I start bringing all those memories back and throwing things out on the canvas and stuff. I like to paint outside, so that's a lot of environmental stuff in that
too. And speaking of taking a hike in the woods, we happen to have a photo right here.
Yeah. The whole idea behind the tree thing, I did a show called Grandiose 2 years ago. It was all about the Grand River system. I'm doing something now with Halton Creeks and the Meadowvale Paths and the Credit River too for this fall. But this tree fascination is kind of something that I just can't get rid of. It's something I keep going back to. It
looks like you're hiding in some shrubbery here.
That one there was supposed to be a reflection of the lily pads and the algae in that in the river and that and the reflection.
Okay,
but again,
we're seeing different things.
My daughter turns that painting sideways and she thinks it's the Matrix with the zeros and the ones going up and down.
And what about this right here?
This was again a thing with the riverbank, with the whole idea of the grasses and stuff and the copper colors and that, with some of the things around the Laura Gorge area where you get a lot of iron in the water and stuff like that.
This is more of a darker tone, that's for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. And is this a winter setting?
Yeah, that was actually about 10-15 kilometers from here, just north of Mississauga, on a little creek. There's all sorts of amazing little trails all over the Peel area. And what I'd like to do is get people to get out and hike and look at stuff and just go out there and appreciate nature and come back with this whole idea that, it's just a fun thing to do.
Absolutely.
Now, Bill, you had a career in industrial design for almost 3 decades, I believe. What made you make the transition, and do you adopt any of your past experiences into your career now as an artist?
I think the industrial design part for me, I was involved in a lot of retail and got into sort of the management side of the business, which is kind of fun, but you lose a little bit of that creativity. I've painted since I was a teenager, but now the whole idea is that I've sort of walked away from that past career, and I've, for the last 3 years, just focused on being an artist. It's been a great journey so far, and I'm looking forward to doing that for the next 10, 20 years at least. But the industrial design part, it's sort of in the background always, but I'm trying to just basically just, keep it there. Keep it in the closet and just think about doing the fun stuff that I'm doing now.
That's good. It's nice to be able to focus on having that fun stuff to do.
Oh yeah, you know what? It's great to have a job where you actually get up in the morning and you're like, I'm working?
Yeah.
And you work at your own pace, right? Which
Well,
is nice.
yeah, and that's that part, is I'm busier now than I've ever been, and I'm doing my own thing, which is great.
It's definitely great. Now, you take a lot of photographs as well. You paint
Yep.
from your photographs. But how do you decide which of your photos is the one that you're going to paint from?
Well, that's a good question, because I really don't paint from one photograph. What I'll do is I'll immerse myself in, like for the, this thing I'm doing now for the credit and the Halton Creeks, is I'll have thousands and thousands of photographs. And what you're doing is you're sort of building a library of images in your mind. Mm-hmm. And when I actually paint, I don't look at a specific photograph. I'll just start drawing from all those images that I've looked at over and over for the last 6 months to a year. And it's sort of like, I guess, what a writer would do. They do a lot of research, and then they put all that research in the back of their brain, and then they recall it when they need it. So for me, abstract painting is just basically just catching little bits of this all over the place. Mm-hmm. And there will be some reoccurring themes. Some things I'll pull from something maybe that I did 10 years ago, or an image that I saw, and I go, hey, that's kind of neat. I like the way that worked. And then it'll come out just as it comes out. That's nice about abstract art, is it's very free form. It's really, at the time.
Right.
Just sitting here, I can tell how passionate you are about what you do.
Yeah, it's fun.
And just your entire career. Do you find yourself developing a personal connection with your photographs, your artwork, and how do you let them go, essentially?
That's an interesting question, because I just started selling my art about 3 or 4 years ago, and the first painting that I sold, it was like giving up a child, right? It's like, how do you do this? Oh, I love that painting, and then you get people saying, hey, you sold that painting? But that's the one I wanted to buy. I said, well, you didn't tell me that like 2 years ago. What's going on? So it is a little bit of a heartbreaker when you give away the painting you like. But it's great for me in the sense of, it allows me to move on and do more paintings, and you can only store so many paintings in your studio at home, right?
Absolutely.
You got to make room for new stuff.
Well, we have about 10 seconds left. Can you sort of sum up what we're going to see from you at the Arts on the Credit show?
You're going to see a pretty good representation of my work. There's going to be 29 other artists with me, so I think it's going to be a great little weekend event, and that's just about it. Come on in and see us, and you're going to have a good time at the show.
Simple as that. So it definitely sounds like it's going to be a great time. A lot of artwork, hopefully something we can pick up as well, which is great. If you want to attend it, it's April 21st and 22nd at the Waterside Inn. For more information, you can go to artsonthecredit.ca. I want to thank you so much, Bill, for coming on the show today.
Thank you very much.
A lot of fun, a lot of great artwork, really, really interesting, and I really like how we took away different perceptions of what we were looking at, even just you and me. Stick around, we got more on Daytime when we come back after this. Don't go anywhere.